Professor Horace Eugene Flaccus Slughorn was a pureblood wizard and member of the Slughorn family. He attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry before returning in 1931 to teach as Potions Master. He later went on to serve as Head of Slytherin House before surprisingly retiring 50 years later in 1981. This is the life of Horace Slughorn. Horace Slughorn was born April 28th between the years of 1882 to 1913. Now, the reason for the vast gap in the estimation of his birth year starts with the year he began teaching, which was 1931. 17 years prior to this, including accounting for his graduation, and if he immediately began teaching the same September, that would make 1913 the latest date that Slughorn can be born. Now, the earliest possible birth date of 1882 is due to Dumbledore commenting in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince chapter 4 when he says, "You're not yet as old as I am, Horace," with the headmaster's year of birth being 1881. Horace was born into the wealthy pure-blooded Slughorn family. Although his parents never believed in pure-blood superiority as much as some others did, they encouraged Horace to make friends with the right sort upon arriving at Hogwarts, as it was his best chance of fitting in. However, they were still loving parents and they only quietly encouraged their belief, something Horace didn't exactly stick to. When he attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry at the age of 11, he was immediately sorted into Slytherin House. He excelled at school and became friends with Muggleborns even though his parents didn't quite agree with it. He did develop a need to play favourites with anyone he considered talented enough and loved to make out that he knew famous people, such as the Minister for Magic, who he would refer to by his first name to try and convince others that he was close to him. At some point after completing his education, Slughorn was employed as Potions Master, likely around the same time as Albus Dumbledore started teaching at Hogwarts too. Although he was well suited to working in politics, he preferred to stay in the background and enjoy the privileges of having famous and successful friends. He was a natural teacher. He loved Hogwarts and everything about the school. Slughorn used Felix Felicis when he was 24 years old and once again at the age of 57, resulting in what he says was 2 perfect days. As mentioned previously, he joined the Hogwarts faculty in 1931 and eventually became head of Slytherin House. Slughorn founded a small club consisting of students he thought were particularly talented, ambitious, clever, or simply well connected. This group would become known informally as the Slug Club. By showing extreme favouritism to these select pupils, Slughorn was able to benefit from their eventual success or fame later in life, reaping rewards such as free Quidditch tickets, boxes of sweets, or simply the chance to give advice to high-ranking officials at the Ministry of Magic. He tended to ignore students he felt weren't high flyers, such as Arthur Weasley and later Arthur's son Ron, although he never did it to be cruel and was still considered a kind man. Regardless, he was good at finding talent since nearly every member of the Slug Club went on to have great careers in many different fields. He greatly disliked Dolores Umbridge under his tutelage, whom he saw as an idiotic woman. Still, he tended to treat all of his students reasonably well. By the 1940s, Slughorn had met Tom Marvolo Riddle, who went on to become a favourite of his. Tom was very intelligent and seemed promising, but he knew how to manipulate Slughorn by flattering him. Dumbledore tried to warn Horace that Tom was using him, but the potions teacher believed that he had judged Tom right and that Dumbledore was being unfair. During the school year of 1943, he hosted a supper in his office with a group consisting mostly of Slytherin boys, including Tom. After dismissing them from his study, Tom remained behind and questioned Slughorn on the matter of Horcruxes and whether it would make him more powerful if he were to create 6, therefore having 7 separate pieces of his soul hidden in the world, as 7 is the most highly magical number. Despite being taken aback by Riddle's interest in such dark magic, he reluctantly agreed to give him an overview of Horcruxes on the condition that everything they discussed remained between them and was purely academic. Using the information, Riddle later went on to create 6 Horcruxes, making himself immortal. It is very likely that Riddle already knew most of what he needed to know about Horcruxes, but the fact that Slughorn had provided some of the knowledge that made this possible was a terrible truth he would carry with him for the rest of his life. When Tom left Hogwarts, Slughorn was very upset when he disappeared, instead of taking up excellent offers of employment, and that he had severed contact with him. Horace began to realise that Tom Riddle was not all that he seemed. When Lord Voldemort rose to power, Slughorn did not think he was Tom because of his very changed appearance. However, when Horace realised that the Dark Lord was indeed his former pupil, he was mortified and heavily shocked. When Voldemort returned to Hogwarts sometime between the late 1960s and early 1970s to try and find work as the Defence Against the Dark Arts professor, Horace hid in his office so that he didn't have to meet Tom. He was happy when it didn't happen, but when the Wizarding War started, he had heard rumours that Voldemort had achieved immortality. Slughorn believed he was at fault for telling him about Horcruxes. Dumbledore, however, was kind to Slughorn, even though he knew what he was hiding. He stayed at Hogwarts during the war, as it was a safe place, and vowed never to tell anyone what he had told Voldemort. Slughorn remained at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry for many years after Tom Riddle's departure, going on to teach many talented students. Some of his favourites included Lucius Malfoy, his eventual successor as Potions Master, Severus Snape, and Snape's best friend, Lily Evans, whom he particularly liked for her sheer cheek and natural flair for potions. Lily was one of Slughorn's all-time favourite students. There were also numerous other favourites in that time frame as well. When Voldemort seemingly died in 1981, Horace was even more happy than most of the wizarding population. He thought that Voldemort's death meant that he never made Horcruxes, and that freed him from having to feel guilty about informing a young Tom about them. However, Dumbledore noticed that Slughorn was particularly joyful about something, which made him gently question Slughorn on things. Fearing that his secret could be revealed, Horace resigned from Hogwarts after teaching there for 50 years. Having resigned from his position at Hogwarts in 1981, Slughorn chose to enter retirement. He had a carefree retirement and took up residence at the home of his late parents. He enjoyed reading, visiting his old Slug Club members and inviting them to reunion feasts at his home. The only thing he missed was teaching, and the idea that new students would not know who he was. However, in 1991, word reached Slughorn that Voldemort was still alive in disembodied form. The guilt that he had let go of returned when he realised it confirmed his original thoughts that Voldemort may have indeed created Horcruxes if he was alive in such a form. He was frightened by the idea, and wished he had stayed at Hogwarts in the hope that he would be safer. He felt so guilty, in fact, that he modified his own memory of the incident both to hide his guilt from others and also to shield himself from the terrible shame he felt. On June 27, 1995, Slughorn was visited by Corbin Yaxley, who clearly came to recruit him into the Death Eaters. Horace quickly transfigured himself into an armchair and was glad when he successfully went undetected. What bothered Slughorn the most about Voldemort was that he did not understand what Voldemort could possibly want from him, believing he either wanted more recruitments for his army or that he wanted to kill him to keep his secret safe. In either case, Slughorn went into a secluded lifestyle, moving from one Muggle house to the next, using his many and varied contacts to maintain a very comfortable lifestyle. He remained attentive to the news, such as how Dolores Umbridge was carted off into the Forbidden Forest by a herd of centaur. Even though he never liked her, he thought it was rather unsightly of how the school treats its teachers, unaware that she offended the herd with blatant insults. Slughorn was not able to hide forever though, as he discovered one evening in the summer of 1996 when Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter came to call in the Muggle village of Budleigh Babberton. In an attempt to escape Dumbledore, Slughorn faked a struggle, wrecking the house, splashing his last bottle of expensive dragon blood on the walls and disguising himself as an armchair. He hoped Albus would be fooled into thinking Death Eaters had kidnapped or killed him, but in his haste however, he forgot to cast the dark mark over the building. Dumbledore saw through this disguise and forced Horace to reveal himself. Albus then feigned going to the bathroom, leaving Harry alone with Slughorn, as was the plan all along. After talking to Harry, Slughorn realised everything he had to gain by returning to Hogwarts, like a more comfortable life and not being on the run anymore, plus the opportunity to recruit the Chosen One into his Slug Club. He agreed to return to the school on the condition that he received a pay rise and was given Professor Merrythough's old office instead of the water closet he had last time. During the start of term feast, Slughorn was announced to be returning to his position as Potions Master, while Professor Snape, who was Potions Master after Slughorn's first retirement, would take over the defence against the dark arts teaching position. This came to the surprise and shock of many, as Harry in particular expected Slughorn would take over the defence against the dark arts position. Horace had proven himself to be more popular than the strict and biased Snape, allowing students to take his advanced classes within exceeds expectations, refusing to show any undeserved rights to the Slytherin students, and managed to earn their interest by brewing several potions during the introductory lecture. In his first 6th-year potions class upon returning to Hogwarts, Slughorn offered a bottle of Felix Felicis to the student who brewed the best cauldron of Draught of Living Death. Using tips scribbled in a borrowed copy from a mysterious half-blood prince of advanced potion making, Harry impressed Slughorn with his attempt and won the lucky potion. Horace remained impressed with Harry in class, believing that the young wizard had inherited Lily's intuitive ability in potions. Later that year, Dumbledore would task Harry with coercing the full memory of Slughorn's conversation with Tom Riddle from the reluctant potions master. After a disastrous first attempt in which Slughorn shouted at Harry and slammed the classroom door behind him, Horace became determined not to give Harry another opportunity to question him, staying out of his way in class and stopping all Slug Club suppers. Despite this, he consented to help Harry treat a love potion struck Ron Weasley, then was spared another attempt at acquisition when Ron was subsequently poisoned by some mead Slughorn forgot to give Dumbledore for Christmas. Fortunately, chance and Felix Felicis gave Harry the perfect opportunity afterwards. One night at Hagrid's hut, after going with Harry to help bid farewell to Aragog, Slughorn reluctantly passed the memory about Voldemort to Harry. After getting heavily drunk on wine, Harry in turn helped Slughorn obtain some valuable acromantula venom from Aragog. Harry then passed the memory to Dumbledore, finally revealing that Tom Riddle did indeed create Horcruxes. At the end of the school year, Dumbledore was killed by Severus Snape. Slughorn was deeply shaken by this, commenting that he thought he knew Snape. He also expressed his concerns that parents wouldn't allow their children to return to Hogwarts. Nevertheless, he remained at the school and resumed his old post as Head of Slytherin House. Horace stayed at Hogwarts under the tenure of Severus Snape as headmaster and, like the rest of the teachers, attempted to protect the students from Snape and the Carrows. It was at this point that he finally found out why Voldemort had wanted to recruit him. He was surprised that it was only to teach the pure and half-blood students he would allow to attend Hogwarts. When the Dark Lord invaded the castle with his army, it was initially believed that Slughorn had fled in cowardice, but as it transpired, he had gone to Hogsmeade to round up reinforcements. He returned to the castle at the head of a vast number of residents and shopkeepers from the town, several Slytherin students who also returned to defend the school, and the friends and family of the students and staff already fighting. Slughorn engaged the Dark Lord head-on, with Professor McGonagall and Kingsley Shacklebolt, proving himself a master duelist, able to hold his own against the most dangerous dark wizard of all time. Slughorn was one of the last to duel Voldemort before his death, believing he could find some redemption for what he told him many years earlier about Horcruxes. After the battle, he sat in the Great Hall by Pomona Sprout and Phileas Flitwick, telling of how he had lost his wand during the fighting, but eventually found it in the folds of his gowns and dispatched a few Death Eaters. His bravery at the Battle of Hogwarts was well publicised, and it changed the perception of Slytherin House. Horace retired by 2016 and had the honour of having a portrait of himself placed in the Slytherin common room. Slughorn's development as a character is extremely interesting, as he only realised in his latter years that avoiding his issues would not make them disappear. He found the mental strength to finally confront the man to which he hid from in fear and shame, that instead of running from Voldemort like he had, it was time to face him and atone for his actions, taking on his former student in battle instead of thinking of his own well-being, making Horace Slughorn such a beautifully developed character, all in the space of 2 books. That is all for today's video, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you're following me on Instagram at InstaDeanJ. What you'll see coming up on the left hand side of your screen is some of my other videos. If you want to check out my second channel, it's on the right hand side, and the merchandise is on the bottom right. Thanks very much again, and have a great day.